Horizontal rowing, there's a lot of ways to do this that I make a little video on 3 variants that you might find beneficial, and just some cautions as I take you through these rows. The first one is going to be the reach forward row, and a typical dumbbell row, a single arm dumbbell rowed off a bench or a 3-position row, whatever it may be, we tend to reach straight down. I'm going to advocate, or at least offer that one of the things you could do is stretch the lat, especially if some of you don't have a lat pull-down machine at home or something like that. One way of increasing lat activation is to reach forward, just like you're simulating this idea of stretching the lat like you would in a lat pull-down or a pull-up. You can do the same thing with the reach forward row. I'll mention this when I go over each one of these rowing styles. Just be careful that you stay out of the upper trap. So don't let the upper trap be the initiator of movement. Make sure your shoulder blade is and the muscles around that. You really got to concentrate when you do horizontal rowing to ensure that you don't climb into the upper trap. Initiate the movement through the mid-back. Think about mind-muscle connection, right? Of pulling through the lat first. Otherwise, you can risk getting shoulder impingement. Again, these are all. I'm not saying you will. I'm just saying just be mindful of the shoulder. And if you're pulling through the right parts of the musculature, you can do something like the reach forward row. The second one you're going to see is the reach across row. And you'll see I turn my shoulders a little bit, which is something we usually, it may not be something you would do. And you'll hear in the video when I talk about it, I'm not advocating you turn your shoulder significantly, but what I am saying is that some rotation could be fine. I'm talking about the planted arm shoulder. It'll make sense when you see the video. The arm that's working, certainly we want to reach across the body. Idea is, again, stretching the muscle as much as possible, gaining as much range of motion. That's the point. Gaining as much range of motion as possible in these particular movements. So the first one is more about lats. The second one's more about post-delt, and of course the mid-trap, rhomboids, that musculature through the mid-back. At least that's the primary musculature. A little bit of lat activation as well. Of course, you're not going to just turn it off, but it's that movement is a little bit more about the mid-back. I'm not saying it isn't about the lat, it's just more about the mid-back. And then the final one you'll see is the Flexion Row, which is gaining some popularity. You can do it off a T-bar row machine. I'll mention this in the video as well. You'll notice my head position. I'm pulling up on purpose. So the biggest thing with that flexion row is make sure you're not moving through a lumbar spine, moving through the L spine. You're moving through the T spine. You're stretching again. You're stretching that the upper back with the point of increasing range of motion. And then when you go into extension, even pulling your head up, right, is going to activate the erector muscles throughout the middle of the back as well. Okay. I know moving the cervical spine around and keeping it stable is usually a good idea, and I don't disagree with that at all. But keep in mind the flexion row. The idea with it is that you're pulling up into head position where you're extending the head, but you're also using all the muscles that are going down the spine and pulling that T spine up. Okay, so it's not just about the head; it's about all the muscles connected to the head and the cervical spine. Right, the muscles that are below the head. There's muscles that connect to the spine to the head, and then from the spine to the lower part, the mid part of the spine, and so on. Is that we're trying to activate all that musculature that's deep, to the muscles that we usually think about in the middle of the back. Again, mid trap, rhomboid, so forth. And so that's why that head movement exists. It's not supposed to be just a mistake in training technique. I'm not advocating throwing your head around, but in this particular case, a rhythmic motion, you can flex and extend the head in such a way that you're really trying to promote movement of the T-spine. It's not about trying to crank your head into a maximal extended position. That's not what I'm advocating. I'm advocating moving the cervical spine back as you move in order to activate the musculature through the mid-back. So just keep that in mind. Don't crank the head back and try to push your head back into that excessive position. You'll see in the video I try not to do that. I'm trying to move my cervical spine more so than I am just my head. All right, so let's take a look at the videos, and I'll narrate a little bit of what's going on, and then I'll come back and wrap it up. So what you're looking at here is reaching forward row. So reaching forward, stretching the lat, and then as I pull in here, I'm going to squeeze the blade as I get close to the top here. Okay, and so now I'm squeezing the blade at the top. Not going too far, right? It looks like I am in the picture here, but I'm just squeezing the blade in enough that, I'm feeling my shoulder blade come back into my midline and not trying to just pull through the shoulder and stretching out the anterior capsule. So I'm going to reach forward again. Again, purposely reaching forward here to stretch out, and as I start to pull, I try to initiate the movement with my muscles in my upper back, so mid-trap. Of course, the lat here is heavily involved. That's why I'm reaching forward in the first place, and staying out of the upper trap. You can see I'm a little bit of tension in my upper trap, but that's just because I'm tight in my upper traps. But trying to make sure that pulling through the right musculature. Okay, so this is the reach forward row, more of a lat dominant row here. Okay, so you can try this. Let the dumbbell just lean forward. Don't lean forward when you do that though through your by climbing through the upper trap. Here's the reach across row, and the idea here is again gain more range of motion as we reach across, stretching those mid trap of my left arm. As you're looking at me on the right, stretching those rhomboids, mid trap fibers. Okay, just gaining more of a stretch. I'm also getting, and I'm not advocating a lot of rotation when you do these row exercises, but I am getting some offside rotation on the other arm. And so as I'm going in here, I'm trying to stay out of my upper trap, but I'm also getting a stretch through the offside shoulder as well. So if you look, I'm going here, I have a fixed shoulder blade, and the midline is moving away from, it's stretching slightly, the right arm, looking at your left, musculature on that other blade. But certainly the big benefactor here is the left arm. As you're looking at me, your right side, my left arm moving, reaching across, stretching those posterior fibers of the deltoid, and also, of course, the mid-back and rhomboids as mentioned. So again, this is just another variant on increasing range of motion. Remember, this is all about increasing range of motion. Lifting in Hey Dudes is totally up to you as well. Flexion row. So this is one that I think is becoming more popular in general. You can do this with a T-bar row machine as well. And so again, I'm pulling up high here. It's just because of my body angle. I'm not trying to pull further than I need to squeeze my shoulder blade in and stretch the anterior capsule. I don't want to do that. Just squeeze the blade. So now I'm going to reach down, and as you see here, my lower back remains neutral. So I'm not flexing through my lower back. I'm flexing through my T-spine. You might see like a deadlifter. Somebody's a really good deadlifter that allows their back to roll. It's not through their L-spine, it's through their T-spine. Okay, and so I'm, again, gaining range of motion by stretching at the bottom and then pulling my head up and really arcing through that mid-back, through the T-spine area. I'm not trying to arc through my lumbar spine per se. I'm arcing through my mid-back, my T-spine area, just trying to shorten down the musculature in my back as much as possible. So again, stretching here, opening up the shoulder blades. That's called protraction in the kinesiology language. Okay, and then as I pull up here, again, making sure I'm not getting the upper trap where I'm pulling through my upper traps first. I'm eliciting the movement, starting the movement through the fibers of the middle of my back, and again, squeezing the blades together. So another great exercise. It'll smoke your lower back a little bit too, just from holding. So those are 3 different row variants. I hope you found interesting. Again, there's some just going to reemphasize the importance of ensuring that you're pulling mind-muscle connection, pulling through the correct part of the musculature, aka the mid-back, when initiating all these movements. And again, even though I had some excessive head movement, it looks like that's out of control. You really got to pull idea of protracting and in this case, retracting the cervical spine, and not necessarily just throwing the head backwards. Okay, now I did move the head on purpose, but the idea is to have some retraction. Okay, hope you find these row variants valuable. If you haven't subscribed already, subscribe to the channel. I got a whole bunch of videos on book club and journal club and other conceptual things. I thought I'd just put out an exercise video. I like talking about exercise and some of these oddball. Well, they're not really oddball exercises, just exercises that kind of build on the foundational movement. So if you haven't perfected a dumbbell row, don't mess with these yet. Make sure you know how to do a dumbbell row and then move to a 3-point row. Then you can start to do some of these other things. Because if you try to jump to these, I hate to use them called advanced movements, but where you're trying to excessively or trying to push the range of motion, and you can't do the basic movement first, you're probably going to be pulling through the upper trap, right? And get yourself in trouble in the sense that you get yourself a shoulder impingement, or you're not moving properly. I didn't talk about basic row mechanics. It's all about blade movement. It's not about arm movement really. At least when it comes to the musculature in the mid back. Certainly the arm movement's important with the lat, but we can move the arm around without moving the shoulder blade. I'll make a video on that later. But anyway, hope you enjoy these variants. Hope you find them valuable. Give them a try. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you think it's bunk, maybe I'm just full of crap, which is entirely possible. All right, see you in the next video.